everybody. Benjamin Holiday here with On Your Mark Worldwide. Back again for another FAQ Fridays. So, hello and welcome. Thank you for showing up. Today we're not going to have Mark because he's off doing something busily. But anyways, if you're new here, FAQ Fridays is where you, the audience, get to ask us the questions and then we answer them to the best of our ability. So questions relating to fitness, nutrition, or general overall mindset, health, and wellness, right? So how to organize your life, put you on a path in the direction that you want to go, right? We all have goals and aspirations and things like that. Well, in all those different categories of our life, you guys ask us those questions and then we do our best to answer them, right? Here live with you. Interact with you, give us the chance to answer the questions that have been on your mind or that generally come up over and over again, right? It's kind of the whole premise of FAQ Fridays. Frequently asked questions, right? So anyways, I'm going to check here really quick to get onto live so I can see you guys posting because my phone's turned around to have the better camera utilization. And then now I can see what you guys say as long as I put the sound off. So, man, wasn't sure if I was going to do FAQ Friday today because, of course, I wasn't sure how that would work out. Mark's not here, and it usually has a pretty good dynamic with both of us being here. We can feed off each other and stuff like that. But hopefully we can get somebody joining us and give us some feedback. So anyways, here we are. Again, more crazy things are happening in our world, right? In our, well, I say in our world, in our world, for all intents and purposes, in North America, right? Coverage of things is pretty intense. It's pretty amazing how we get a new sliver of humanity, of what humanity is capable of in some sense. So that's unfortunate. I wanted to touch on that a little bit because I feel like it doesn't really make too much sense, right? So we know there's a couple things that we got to keep in mind, right? We know that there are variations of, how do I say this? Variations of the amount of people in a particular area, right? And then the way that they grew up or the way that they're structured or whatever, like the United States itself, comparatively to other countries, was developed in a specific way. So within those countries, namely the United States, there are different subsections of that country that were developed in different ways, right? And they're generationally developed. There's generational cultures that are built and they all work together, at least they all mesh together in some way. Not necessarily like they mesh together in a positive thing like you're mixing a cake and it comes together to be awesome, but there's all these things that come together, right? That's something that we really need to keep in mind, right? Historically, a lot of us like to take the sliver of right now, the sliver of the information that's being given us, and then be like, we're just going to go off of that, right? There's so much more to it. And even though in these sliver moments, it's good for us to be like, wow, pay attention and be like, that's pretty jacked up. There's a limit to what you should do immediately, right? Like putting out your support, awesome, right? Promoting the information, awesome. But doing it in such a way that can incite violence or incite more discontent or more problems is, I guess, less of a potential to do good, right? We want things to be better. So in order for things to be better, and it kind of, I imagine that could sound weird coming from a person like me, just who I am or where I came from or what I am perceived to look like or be or whatever. But it's important to keep in mind that there are ways that we can go about moving forward with certain information, or like, let's say someone gives you a piece of information that's random about anything. Someone says something about a movie or something. They're like, hey, I heard in this movie this happened because this character was doing this inside this movie or something. And you're like, what? Whoa, no way. And then you just immediately take it as truth. There could be problems with that. I think it'd be more effective or more beneficial for us to be like, wow, that's pretty crazy. Let me see what I can find out about that on my own. See what other things I can see about that. Like, what was causing this? What is doing this? Like, you got a scratch. Like, oh my gosh, you got a scratch. That's crazy. Let's do something about that. Like, okay, well, what caused that to happen? What caused that scratch? What were you doing that led you to be into the position to where that scratch happened? Or whatever, right? Something like that. So, again, I'm not trying to say that these events should just be, like, washed over or anything, or that, like, hey, there's not they're not as bad as they are meant or they're seem to be. I just feel like it's good to have some critical thinking in situations like this to help us with better understanding and help us with better being better agents of society, right? So we want our society to be a good, productive thing for everybody to be able to commingle, co-work together, no matter what, no matter where you're from, no matter how tall you are, no matter what color you are, no matter what's going on, no matter what age you are, it doesn't matter, right? So we all try to like work together, be like, okay, cool, there are differences amongst everyone. Everyone has a difference in some way, even if they're the same color, even if they're the same age, right? There are differences, and those need to be understood. Be like, hey, if I'm going to interact with somebody, if I'm going to want to work well with somebody, I need to understand where they're coming from, right? So that's good to keep in mind. Have some kind of critical thought, critical thinking about the situation that you're in, or the things that you hear, things that are going on in your life, your own particular life, like mine included, right? I tend to like to stay in a certain realm, but I also dip outside of that realm every once in a while to see what the other perspectives are like, so that I don't get stuck in my own ideology. I don't get stuck in my own echo chamber of what I want things to be like. I don't create like a false sense of reality based off of what I chose to absorb, right? Chose to continuously think on and project or to promote. So I try to think about all the different sides, or try to at least look at the opposing viewpoints, right? Opposing things. Well, what about that side? What about that side? Not in a way to be like, to take away from one side, but to try to see more of the whole picture. So anyways, I kind of wanted to put my own 2 cents out there about that, and hopefully people are doing good by being critical thinkers in the situation. Like, okay, where am I at, and how bad could that be for me, considering who I am in the situation? What options do I have? What can I do, right? And that's good. And then who can I get on my side? What support can I get? How can I do that without outwardly going out to damage people, which obviously is happening from a certain subset of particular people. Or at least that's what we see. We know it's already been, when big things happen in the world, focus gets put on it, right? Hyper-focus. But anyways, I don't want to go too far into this. I just wanted to make sure I touched on it a little bit to see how people felt about it. It doesn't look like anybody's jumped on yet, which is interesting, I suppose, because I knew somebody was going to jump on here. Anyways, if you're watching right now, thanks for watching, by the way. I appreciate that. I'm going to jump into the questions, because I kind of derailed a little bit on that and went into my personal opinion about it, which is can very easily be misconstrued, misinterpreted, or whatever. It's all dependent, like again, it's all dependent on what we are made up of. What are the information that made us up? What's the cultural positions? What are the biases that we have within ourselves? Like, I have biases that I can't get away from. Everybody has a bias that they can't. Like, we can, as hard as we want, we could try and be aware of them and try to work around them, but they're ingrained in us for the most part. There's a lot of stuff that's ingrained in us that we have to work around, right? We have to do something else. It's kind of like habits that were created from our DNA in a weird way like that, right? So we can relatively accurately say that we're about 50% nurture, 50% nature, right? 50% DNA, 50% things that we are interacted with. So it's, with that, we can understand, like, okay, cool, there are certain things about me that I have to be able to mitigate. I have to be able to, if I want to, or if I grow an awareness of myself, I can do something about it, right? I can try to shift it or work on it, do something. Like, obviously there are some things that are immutable, right? Like my height, I can't do anything about that. But anyways, there's some stuff that we can do to navigate that as long as we grow an awareness. Yeah, let's jump into the questions. Sorry. If I keep throwing everybody, hey, this is great. Right, Mark? Yeah, thanks. So, one question that was put towards me was from a good friend of mine, Kimberly. She posited, what are the benefits of a juice cleanse, right? So I think this is actually a really good thing that we most likely have covered once before, but it's good to revisit, I think, because human beings are continuously having to, what's the word? I keep wanting to say challenge, are constantly having to combat toxicity, right? So our bodies are constantly getting toxins in us that we mostly don't know about. So there's toxins from the air, toxins from our water, especially in your different areas that it's like known, but there are certain regulations or amounts that are allowable, right? And even though it's allowable, it may not necessarily mean that it's good, right? Because generally speaking, it's allowable because it generally doesn't affect people as bad. But there are going to be some people that it affects really bad, right? Some people have sensitive skin or different things inside them that make them predisposed or susceptible to these different chemicals or elements that are in our environment, our water, our air, our food, all those things, right? The cars, perfumes, all these things, all these chemicals that are in our daily lives can be challenging. Those are toxins, right? So we clean with things. We put different ointments on our skin. We shower with certain shampoos and stuff that makes your hair silky smooth. Shampoo is better. No, conditioner, sorry. Wow, they skipped on that one. So anyways, conditioner. So anyway, all these things that we put on ourselves are potentially different levels of toxins that we either can or cannot, we either are or are not susceptible to. So anyways, the biggest thing that I'm trying to get to is that we are constantly battling a level of toxicity within ourselves. So a juice cleanse can be potentially helpful. Right? And actually, I feel like it would be helpful regardless, because most human beings, or at least most in North America, as far as studies go, most Americans are deficient in important vitamins and minerals, right? Important nutrients that the body doesn't get anymore, either because of the food products that we have that are just devoid of it, or the way that we have done our agriculture, where we've churned through it so many times that it's pulled all nutrients out of it. Now we're trying to put nutrients back into it. So anyways, lots of nutrients is gone and we're devoid of it, so we need to find ways to put nutrients back in it. So having a juice cleanse, it's like a concentrated amount of vitamins and minerals and nutrients and things, right? So, and antioxidants, right? So it would be most beneficial for us to just maintain a healthy level of fruits and juices and things like that. Fruits, vegetables, and fruits and vegetables into our diets that we're supposed to. I'd say like 50% of what you consume, I would think, would be a good level. 50 to 60% would be a good level of fruits and vegetables, right? So you want to think of that being more than any other thing. Like meat's supposed to be a small amount, right? Imagine 4 to 6 ounces or something like that. And varying, of course, from poultry, beef, and fish. And that's all dependent on your particular microbiome, your particular makeup, and how that best suits you. But for the most part, that works out to be very beneficial, generally speaking. So the best thing that you could do is figure out for yourself what best suits your body. So juice cleanses can help you speed up the process of detoxing and putting in essential nutrients and things, especially if you're trying to change a diet or move into a different direction. You're like, you know what, I'm fed up. I'm tired of being this way. I'm tired of eating this stuff. I'm tired of feeling like crap, having no energy and have this cognitive decline. And not that cognitive decline is, the correlation is not necessarily causation, because there are some people that can eat like trash their whole life and still have amazing brains. So again, it all kind of affects people differently relatively. But it could be potentially a thing that's causing you that issue, right? Like with me, if I don't eat well, I get cognitive decline. And I've been pretty obsessed for a long time about my mental capabilities, my mental facets. So if I feel like they're declining, or I feel like I'm not cognitively there, that's another reason why I stayed away from drugs and stuff like that. I didn't like how it took that the fact that it would take away from your like free will, in a sense, your capability of managing your own body. It's like, nah, I'd like to be in control. In that sense, control of myself to be able to manage my life in a positive way. So I think that's important. So juice cleanses can be super good for you, right? I kind of derailed there, I forgot where I was going. But anyways, juice cleanses can be super important in moving you in the direction you want to go, right? You've gotten fed up and everything. Here I am. I want to move in this direction, so that'll help push you into that direction quicker, faster, right? So we don't want to stay on it for a long time, though. So some people will take that information and be like, oh, juice cleanses are good. Well, I'll just stay on a juice cleanse. That's what I'll do. I'll just consume that, right? Someone's like, hey, avocado and broccoli is good. Like, that's all I'm eating. That's it. That's me. I'm game until they get hospitalized or they get malnutrition and other things. So even though it may be good with antioxidants and vitamins and different things like that, it doesn't give you everything, right? So you have to balance it out. Again, that's why we want to try to have as much fruits and vegetables in our diet continuously as possible. That's right, I mentioned the fact that my particular body doesn't like to eat unhealthy too much because it jacks with me. Either the way that I look, because I've been hyper obsessed with the way I look too, because that's something like innate to me, that was given to me when I was a kid, when I was really, really young. So when I was in the first developmental stages, and this is important for you to understand too, and I've said this all the time, I say this all the time, repeat it all the time, but it's worth repeating. From the first, like 0 to 7, even when you're in your womb, in your mother's womb, it starts, right? Your gene expression is happening dependent on your mother's environment, right? Or the environment that you're in, which is your mother. And depending on her environment, it depends on how her body is changing and being manipulated, right? By the food that she eats, the stress that she's having, the environment, the toxins she's involved with, the drugs that she's using, or anything, right? That goes into you. Like, ooh, I have to make sure that I optimize for my environment. So it starts there. Anyways, from 0 to 7, there you go. That's like a main portion of your life of development to where everything is being done. Everything is open and available. So imagine yourself, you're a library, the door is open, and the first 7 minutes or something, and all the people outside waiting have the ability to throw whatever they want in there, right? Like go, 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 and everything just absorbs, and then it cuts off a bit. The hemisphere is split, and then allows it to regulate a little more about what it absorbs and what actually goes in. It's no longer such a consumption machine. Right? Like, okay, cool. I'm still sponge-ish, but not quite as much as I was before, right? So that's really crucial for what stuff got put into your library, in a sense, in those first crucial years. So depending on that, depends on kind of like how that plays out to the rest. There's like your 50%, right? Kind of like with the nurture thing. So anyways, that kind of happened to me. In my first years, there was a lot of stuff that motivated me to say being overweight is bad, really bad, right? A lot of things happened to me that were traumatic and hard for me to deal with, and I was like, I can't do that. I can't get into that state of being. So it's been an internal driver that's constant, right? So what's interesting too is a lot of people say, man, I have a hard time losing weight, right? Most people have a hard time losing weight because it's difficult to change your habits in a way that's beneficial because of our environment, right? It's hard. Then I get that. But because I have this internal intrinsic thing, it makes it a little more easier for me. But that doesn't mean that I don't know about it, right? I'm aware of it. And because I'm aware of it, I can take steps to understanding it and then making sure that I'm going in the direction I still want to go and making sure I don't make it go too extreme, right? So with that internal motivator, it could go to an extreme if I allow it to. I can also become a bulimic or anorexic. Like, I must maintain this weight no matter what, right? So I didn't allow that to go to that point. I mitigate it. So the same thing with somebody who's like, hey, I don't have any driver whatsoever. You can mitigate it by giving yourself drivers. You can do something about it. So, and we're crazy on a tangent about benefits of the juice cleanse and how our developmental status gets us to where we are and what's beneficial for us. So the most beneficial thing is to try to maintain a healthy diet that's good for you. And I did mention something about finding out what's good for you, right? There are different things that you can do, different tests that you can have. There's a Viome, or there's a company called Viome, which I actually really like. Viome.com, has a test. I think it's like $150 right now. When they first started their company, or at least when they were still fresh, I got it for like $100 back in the day a couple of years ago. And they basically take a stool sample from you. They send you a package. You give them a stool sample, and they tell you all the bacteria that lives inside your gut at that point in time, right? And that constantly changes, keep in mind, every year or so, depending on what you're eating or where you move to or what you get involved with or whatever, right? Your environment plays a lot with that. So anyways, excuse me, you get that test, the microbiome, you get the Viome test, you get the microbiome test from the stool sample, and then they give you a feedback of all the foods that are your superfoods, your particular superfoods for your microbiome, right? What works for you. Foods to stay away from. They're like, hey, like me, I should stay away from broccoli, right? Most people are like, broccoli is good for you. There's somebody I know that should stay away from avocado. Everybody's like, avocado is good for you. Not necessarily you specifically, right? So that's important to know, especially if you're really trying to go on the right track of being like, I want to eat healthy, right? You don't really know if you're eating healthy if you're just generalizing the information. Like, you have to do the whole trial and error thing. Okay, I'm eating healthy. Why is this not helping me? Well, what is it in there that's causing inflammation, right? Maybe broccoli is an inflammation causer for you, right? Maybe avocado, or maybe some of the collard greens, or some of the spinach, or whatever, like anything that you're putting in you, maybe that's causing you some inflammation that you think is healthy. So it's important for you to know that. And I find that that's important to know too. Of course, the exercise, right? What level of exercise is good for you? What level of sleep is good for you? When you sleep is like, there's so many factors that play into your health and your ability to maintain like a quality weight, a good weight for you, and a good amount of energy and all these different things. It's good for you to figure that out. So first, depending on what level you're at, of say I'm like way down here and I want to be up here. Let's say me, I'm at like more at a middle stage, not quite a performance level or whatever, but I'm in a good mid-range. Like most people would be like, "Wow, you're doing really good," right? To me, from being in the range that I've been relative to me, I would say I'm middle range. So anyways, let's say you're down here, doing a generalized diet or generalized exercise routine, or things that have been promoted out from the FDA or something like that, that have been promoted out that to the US, can be beneficial, right? It can move you up a few ticks. But then once you get to a point where you're like, I want to get more, I want to get higher, like me, if I want to get like performance level or whatever, it refines. You have to refine it, get farther into understanding what it is. Oh, hey Kim, I just noticed you mentioned something on here 6 minutes ago. Sorry about that. But yeah, understanding yourself is really important, depending on where you're at. Well, not really depending on where you're at, but I mean, if you don't want to go super hard, everybody has their own relative understanding and desires to do different things about their health. And depending on where they are in that spectrum, like I said, of where they are, of their health or whatever, their quality of life and things like that, depends on how much they're willing to do and how much what they do will be beneficial, right? So if I went to the generalized information of diet and exercise, I may be able to maintain, but I may have more gastrointestinal discomfort, right? I may get bloated, I may have a bit of a gut, things like that. I may not sleep quite so well or whatever, right? So I'm just saying that there are different levels, and it's something to keep in mind. So Kim said, I prefer to eat lots of chicken and fish, but I do love ribs. Okay. Yeah, so what's funny is I heard something about, I'm not sure how true this is, I haven't checked the validity of this, but I've heard that chicken tends to be cleaner than turkey. So I used to get a lot of turkey meat as like deli meat, deli turkey meat, basically. Anyways, I don't want to go into that. Deli meat, right, and turkey. So me getting chicken would supposedly, from some information source that I can't remember where I got it from, that's why I said I need to check the validity of that, but supposedly the potential for toxins or things that are involved, things that are in it that we don't want in our body, basically, let's just say like hormones and different things like that, could be higher in turkeys because of the size that they try to get them to compared to chickens. Even though chickens do have a size thing that promotes them getting bigger, I don't know, that's just what I heard. So anyways, it's something to keep in mind too. That I feel like this can get super confusing, right? It all depends on your spectrum, where you're at. So if you're at a lower spectrum, you're like, I just want to get better, I just want to feel better, and I'm not at a point to where I'm eating a good standardized diet and exercise. I don't have a good standardized diet and exercise plan or thing in motion currently, or I haven't been doing it for a few months to see how that affects me, then jump on that, right? Do that. So anyway, let's move into another question. I'm not sure how long I went. That was 25 minutes. Jeez. So hopefully you guys don't mind me just kind of rambling on like this and you get little bits and nuggets. So I don't necessarily speak in linear fashion, right? I tend to bounce around in different things because to me, there's a potential for continuous engagement with that, and there's a potential for getting more information by segueing to different things and be like, ooh, that was something I didn't know, or ooh, that was something I didn't know, instead of having a nice streamlined thought of articulation of being like, yep, there you go, I got through the whole thing. Eventually I want to get to that point, but I still feel like there is some value in the way that I speak and the way that I jump around and give as much information that comes up to mind, that pops up, and I want to get it out to be like, hey, this is important to know. So there's one that she also posited earlier, which is how to overcome bad habits. So overcoming bad habits is something we all really want to do. It always seems like bad habits are easier created than good habits. right? But that's only because we only notice. We put focus on the bad habits because of how they affect us. We don't necessarily put a bunch of notice on the good habits we have, right? So we're not like, man, I'm so glad I got this good habit of brushing my teeth. Or, man, I'm so glad I got this good habit of closing the door when I leave my house. I'm so glad I got this good habit of locking the door, right? So glad I got a good habit of putting my shoes on and tying them. There's so many things that we have good habits on that became automatic things that we just do. And we just kind of like brush away, like, well, yeah, I have it now, whatever. But then when we get a bad habit, we're like, oh, this is causing bad things. We're like, man, why are bad habits so easily created? Well, think of all the good habits that you created like that, right? Think of any of them. Think of any of the ones that you're like, well, I just kind of repeated this a few times, and then bam, I have it. Now I have this good habit that you're just like, whatever, it's just something that's good, it's in flow. It's kind of like an expectation. You're like, well, duh, I expect that to happen, so obviously I'm not going to give you praise for it. It's in the description of what you're supposed to do type of thing, right? But if it's off that, or if it's well above that, then there's like, oh, hey, praise, good job. Or I mean, obviously it's off that, not praise, it's like crap. But you pay more focus on it, focus or attention onto it. So anyways, how do you overcome bad habits? So one of the ways that you can overcome bad habits is by utilizing some of the good habits you already currently have, right? So let's say, or creating a good habit in line with the bad habit. So your bad habit has a trigger, right? And the trigger pushes a behavior, right? So your bad habit, say, is eating late at night. Like that one seems to be one it's interesting and difficult to manage, right? When it comes to a certain point, if you ate at 5 or 6 and then you stay up till like 11, that time frame causes your body to get hungry again, right? So you're sitting there like, man, maybe I'll just have something. Maybe I'll just have a little thing. You're like, well, I kind of want something sweet. That'd be nice, right? I haven't had anything sweet all day or whatever, if that's the case. And you're like, okay, cool. I'll have something sweet, or I'll have some cereal, or have something else. And it's usually like some kind of carb thing. Anyways, it doesn't matter. What matters is that there's this bad habit that you have, and that's an example of one. So instead of having that, that trigger that happens where you're like, oh, I'm going to go do this thing that I don't want to do anymore, my bad habit. So I'm going to redirect it and like break that chain of thought, break that chain of movement, motion. Like there's a trigger, then it creates a behavior where I'm moving towards it, starting to do the thing, whatever, you have to break it somehow. Be like, okay, I notice this is coming up. You have to redirect your mind somehow, right? Redirect it to something else. Like, I'm going to go read a book. I'm going to sit down and do 10 push-ups every time I have that thought, right? And while you're doing that, it breaks that chain, and it no longer will have it go. Sometimes it'll come back depending on what you're doing if it didn't redirect it enough. But if you think about it, if you try it out, you'll notice that it fades away, right? That internal desire, the internal motivator, the internal thing that's pushing you to that bad habit you created has been broken, has been redirected. It's fading. So, and then you can create that thing. Like every time you have that, I'm going to do push-ups. Every time I do that, I'm going to go read a book. Every time I do that, I'm going to sit down in a chair and, I don't know, watch something. Whatever works for you, right? Just think of something to do. You're like, you'll make a face, like, ah, do something weird, and that just like throws you off. You're like, what was that, right? But if you bring that up and do it, same thing if someone gets in a pattern of thought, a pattern of like cycling down, like remembering something and freaking out, starting to cry or whatever, and you break their pattern by just doing something crazy weird, or having them think about something like nonsensical. They're like, well, I just don't know. They're like, well, why did you think about the tiger in the clouds? I mean, it doesn't seem like it makes sense for him to be there. And they're like, what? That doesn't make any sense, right? It breaks it. They're just like, wait, what? And it just throws them off. So anyways, you throw off your internal mechanisms that have been created because at some point when you did it, it gave you some dopamine or engaged the dopaminergic system inside yourself to be like, this is a good route to take, even though it's not good for you, right? So you kind of like mess with that system, mess with that flow. Say you have a piece of dirt and you draw a line and then water starts to flow in it. That's your bad habit. You accidentally created, right? You're like, oh man, I dragged this across this, and now it's leading it to habit, leading it to be a habit because more water's flowing and it's getting deeper or whatever. And you're like, okay, I got to redirect it. Now I'm going to, put something in its path or redirect it somewhere else, and all of a sudden it goes somewhere else. And you're like, oh man, the more you do that, the stronger the redirect will be, and it no longer is that. You can think of that as internal neurological wiring, internal taxions, I think is what they're called, axons and taxion and the synapses or whatever, the different strengths, right? So as certain synaptic patterns of firings happen, they grow stronger if they get repeated. So that's how habits get stronger and stronger, and then we get stuck in them, or like addictions are more involved in that. But anyways, so think about it like that. Like, okay, I've created this rut basically in a stronger neural pathway, and I need to redirect it by creating a different pattern of synaptic firings, which is crazy because, right, the brain, many different places fire at once. So there's like, they say this certain event, certain thing happens, like, there's different parts of the brain that fire all at once to coordinate an event, coordinate a memory, coordinate a situation, and fire different behaviors and different things inside the body. So if you change that, redirect it, change the firing sequence or whatever, then it will deteriorate the ones you had before and then grow newer ones in a better path for you to go. So wow, I went crazy on that, how to overcome bad habits, but there's a bunch of other things you can do also. Like I said, piggyback on good habits, get some support from somebody else. If it's different for you to do, like I mentioned, try to do that, like do push-ups or whatever, and you're like, I just can't convince myself to do it, then create an alarm at a certain time that you feel that craving or that situation, or you normally will have it in a certain situation, right? So like if this happens, some people have like a rubber band on their wrist, so when they have a bad thought or when they think about this thing they're doing, they snap it, and it breaks the neural pathway, right? It breaks the connections, like, okay, and it moves them off. It's a quick little thing, right? Some people use that as a way to keep them from perpetuating that bad habit, right? To move in a different direction, to break the cycle of thought. And that could work for a bunch of other things too, not even just for a bad habit, but for different ways of thinking, different situations where you get aggravated or upset and you snap it, whoops, don't want to think that way. Or you get really emotional or something, you snap it. So getting support from somebody else can definitely help a lot. So getting support can definitely help a lot. Helping a friend, a family member, a coach, somebody, right? So with like Mark is a good example as having somebody as a support for getting you to do the exercises you want to do in the right way, right? And then I'm a good example as a coach for when it comes to getting you to create the habits or the goals or find them or get clarity on your goals and then move in that direction. Give you the positive feedback that you need or understand what you specifically need. Like I mentioned before, the whole microbiome, it's very important to understand the individual person rather than just like, I have this set understanding of generalized knowledge to put forth to somebody to be like, here you go, absorb this, good luck. If you have that knowledge and then you have the understanding of how to analyze a person, analyze the way that they move and they do things and why they do things and get an understanding of what their life is and where they are right now and what's going on and where they want to be and how they can change. And then as you pay attention to the changes they do or the things that you try, then you can see them shift, see them change, see them make the changes that they want, right? Or find out that different things don't work and put those to the side. Like, okay, why didn't that work? So it's like a research project in a sense on a person. Be like, okay, cool, how can I better understand you and better understand this process of getting you to where you want to go? And be like, this is what you need, okay, try this. So it's good to have support, right? That's my main message right there, is to have support. That's something that you can use. Make sure that you have, also, if you can cultivate a growth mindset, right? So if you guys don't know, if you've never heard about the fact of the growth mindset, Carol Dweck is the one who coined that in her book. I can't remember no, that's Nihao Csikszentmihalyi. Yeah, I can't remember her book. Anyways, Power of Habits, I think that's what it is. So anyways, she has a book, Carol Dweck, and she coined the term growth mindset. And growth mindset basically means that you believe that you have the ability to change your skill sets, your abilities, your capacities, right? So you're like, okay, can I do this, or is this something that was just innately born in me and I can't do anything about it, right? You're like, no, I can never learn the piano, I can't do that, I don't have the coordination, nope, can't do it. Or, well, okay, are you going to try and see if you can even get to that point, right? Are you going to put forth the effort? Do you feel like that you can? Like, oh, I don't know that yet. Or it's not just like, I'm just not the person who knows it. I can't do that, right? A lot of people get stuck in that way of thinking of being like, hey, that's just not something I do. I've never been able to do that. And they don't think like, well, maybe if I tried more, maybe I had a bad experience one time I tried, why don't I try again, right? We're constantly changing all the time. We're constantly becoming new people all the time. We're being refreshed all the time. So revisit. Our palates change, our eyes change, our ears change, our body changes, everything changes. Our mindsets change, everything changes, right? There are certain elements of us that kind of maintain the same to keep us hold together and sane, but for the most part we change. So use that, understand that. You can change to have a better growth mindset, an understanding of like, I can become better, I can do something more. right? So there's also allow for mistakes. That's super important too, right? So we know that this is something that I was challenged with a lot. I felt like I should be perfect all the time. If I do something once, I should do it to the specifications that were laid out to me. This is how it should be done. You should do it that way. That's it. If you fail, if you don't do it right, you failed and something's wrong with you, right? I had that for a long time, and I had to get to a point of understanding like that's not true. You know what I mean? If you take this step forward in failure, knowing that you will fail, you actually grow. So you can take away from that failure isn't a negative word. Failure is a positive word. Failure is like try. Failure is like I'm moving forward. Failure is like progress, right? If you don't fail, you don't progress. You know what I mean? Because if you only do what you know, then you maintain a status. You're like, I just maintain a status quo. If I fail, I have the opportunity to tick up, find out what didn't work, right? Even the scientific method is based off of that, basically. Scientific method is basically ruling out all the things that don't work so we get closer to what we can say does work, right? Let's rule out all the things that don't work. And the more that we rule out that doesn't work or that isn't right or whatever, like we can get closer into understanding what would most likely be right, right? We never really get to 100% right because it's not possible. Our life, our understanding, everything that is that we can possibly conceive of is ever changing, constantly organic. So we can never really get to 100%. Even with measurements, you can't ever get to 100% in measurement, in anything. So just understand that too. It's good to keep in mind. Allow yourself to fail. Allow yourself to look foolish. Allow yourself to be embarrassed. Allow yourself to have people feel like that you're acting a fool. No, I'm progressing. I don't know what you're doing, but I'm doing something for myself, right? So you don't have to take that on board. You can choose to discard the stuff that is not beneficial to you. So that's another thing to keep in mind as well. So overcoming bad habits, also repetition and consistency. Of course, you want to be able to do this over and over and over again until it really sticks, until those ruts that you create that I mentioned, those lines that you create of the pathway that you want, which is basically, like I said, okay, so the brain actually creates stronger or builds up more and more myelin in the different neural synaptic connections that are important, that get used more often, right? Myelin is like a fatty layer around the taxonic, what it is specifically. On it gets growth and it becomes more conductive. It becomes more efficient in its electrical flow, and it'll be better capacity for it to shoot signals and things like that. So, because we are an electrochemical body, our body moves with electricity and chemicals interacting with each other, moving and doing crazy things. So it's pretty awesome. So if you have those grown, if you do that repetition and consistency, it will help you to maintain it longer, right? Of course, things atrophy without use, so you got to make sure you keep using it too. So reminders, right? I mentioned that. Identify triggers. Identify the triggers is definitely something to keep in mind too. I'm not sure if I mentioned that already, but identifying the things that cause you to move in that direction. So normally when we have a bit of a habit or have a thing, something triggers, like I put my shoes on, that triggers my motion of habits of everything, of all the internal stuff, and then the mechanics of to tie my shoe, to go into that automatic process, that habitual action, the habitual thing the body's like, I know what to do, bam, right? So the brain doesn't really have to use so many resources. But yeah, so identifying the triggers can help you to eliminate as many of them as possible. Let's say that snack food is triggered. Like if I see it, it's a trigger for me to grab it and eat it. If I have chocolate in the house, or if I have snack food in the house, if I have ice cream in the house, or whatever, whenever I open this fridge and see it, it's a trigger to me, like, I want that so bad. It brings up all the stuff inside and be like a neurochemical cocktail of you just being like, oh, I remember that feeling, it's so good. But if you take it away long enough for you to build up a resistance to it, so to speak, then it can help you. So removing as many triggers as possible is definitely a good thing. And that's also a good thing, creating positive triggers, right? So if you want to go for a run every morning, putting your shoes and stuff into a place that you will run into it, or it'll be right there ready and available for you, is a positive trigger. Be like, oh, it like pops it in, like I told myself I was going to do that. It's right there. It's easy. Path of least resistance. I got this. Bam, put it on, go, right? So remember that, hopefully. And there's a lot of stuff. If you need to listen to this again, I'm kind of going over a lot. But that's what I tend to do, I think. There's just a lot of information out there that I would like to posit to you, to get you to think of, to get you to understand, or at least reflect on in some way. Think about it and be like, maybe I could try one of these things, right? Hopefully of the 30 or whatever things that I push out there, there's one of the things that you didn't know. And with not knowing that will lead you to be questioning and potentially try that thing. Like, what can I do? How can I do that? How can I put that into my life? Maybe I can try that. Okay, oh, I didn't really think about triggers before, right? Or I didn't know I could utilize other habits to piggyback on removing bad habits or to create new good habits or things like that, right? And you can do that with good habits as well. Piggyback other habits to have good habits. Like I tie my shoes. Every time I tie my shoe, I'm going to do this. Every time I tie my shoes and put my shoes on, I'm going to do 10 push-ups, right? You can like add different things on. That was just a random example, but something like that. Every time I brush their teeth, I'm going to do something else. I don't know, whatever good habit you want to have. So I probably should end there, but I don't know. What do you think? Anybody on there? Anybody on here watching me? I know one person watching. Is that still you, Kim? Thumbs up or something. Let me know that that's you or somebody's watching me. If I should keep going or stop, because I still have how to motivate ourselves more effectively through reinforcement, and what does it mean to be self-actualized. And I think those are two really important things, depending on where you're at, right? And of course, if you think that the way that I'm articulating this is helpful, then it can be beneficial, right? So I guess for now, I will leave it at that, and then I just posited those to you. So if you feel like you would like to see those on next FAQ Friday, let me know in the comments, and shoot me an email. You can always shoot me an email on onyourmark.fit@gmail.com, right? Mark and I are always welcome to your feedback, your information, your stories of how this has helped you, or different insights that you may have that you feel like we may be wrong on or not. Didn't articulate quite well, right? So we can have a conversation, and I think that's really important. Conversations are what move us, right? Conversations are what allow us to grow and become better, and get different perspectives, and learn from each other, right? So conversation is important, and that's one of the reasons why I really like this too. The way that I articulate myself specifically may be able to resonate with somebody out there who's watching me, right? So keep that in mind. Like I said, feed us information on onyourmark.fit@gmail.com and our emails. Go ahead and continue following us on Your Mark on OYM Worldwide and Facebook. Obviously, follow us on Instagram. Feel free to like, share, and let us know any of that stuff. Give us comments on that on our content as well. So make sure that we're doing things that is actually benefiting people, right? So it's important to us that we are actually reaching people and helping them out. If we're just spouting out stuff that nobody cares about, then it's not really beneficial to anybody. It may be helpful to us in a weird way that we're getting practice, but we want to help other people. So Instagram is onyourmark.fit, @onyourmark.fit. And of course, we have our TikTok at OYM_worldwide. And of course, I really like the TikToks because I think they're fun. I don't know, I always say that every time I mention TikToks, it's because it's just a short, small format, and they're just quick, and they have music and different things. It's pretty cool. Check out our reels. We got a bunch of reels going on. We got some that's over 5,000, or we have one that's over 5,000. But go ahead and check out those things. Let us know what you think. Give us some comments, some feedback. Anything would be beneficial. And questions, right? So if you have a question that we could potentially give you a value, right? We want to give you something that you find valuable, something that you feel like could help you out. So if you have anything like that, make sure to let us know. Thank you again for watching us. What's coming up? Today is Friday, so I'm not doing Structure Saturdays anymore. If you have a desire to see Structure Saturdays come back, please comment below or give us, like I said, any of the other myriad of ways to communicate with us. Also, there's LinkedIn. If you want to go to LinkedIn, there's On Your Mark Worldwide on LinkedIn. And I think there's still some in the works stuff that we're doing about locals and Twitch, actually. I don't know the handle for Twitch, but we're also going to be on Twitch. So look forward to that. Actually, this would be a really good platform for me to rant on for hours and hours about stuff on Twitch and have people interact. I might do that. So look forward to that. Let me know. If you'd like to see us on YouTube, let us know. I'm thinking about popping over there as well. So again, with that, thank you again for the person who watched me this whole time. Not sure who you are, but I really appreciate you jumping on. I really appreciate you being here, showing me your support, showing us your support, and helping us to give us a platform to communicate this information to help as many people as possible. So with that being said, thank you again, and always progress. Have a nice weekend. Take care.